Hey everybody, Brian with Proterio here, and tonight I'm bringing the first of our series on internet marketing, and this is perhaps the most important video in this series because it's talking about the business mindset, what kind of mindset you have to have when going into building your business. And if you don't master this, if you don't get this down, then you're going to severely hinder your results. Even if you learn all of the technical aspects, you get those down pat. If you don't master this, then you are going to severely limit your results, your effectiveness. So let's kind of jump right in. And kind of the main topic I want to talk about, kind of want to look at, is what are called paradigms. Now, if you're not familiar, paradigms is something that's been used a lot in the personal development space. It's something that people like Bob Proctor have talked about extensively. And let's kind of jump in and take a look at what paradigms actually are. So this is actually from Bob Proctor's website, the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And this is talking about paradigms. Now, here we see a really good definition of paradigms as it applies to what we're talking about right here. Paradigms are the multitude of habits that guide every move you make. That is an excellent definition right there. So the multitude of habits that guide every move you make. In other words, the actions that you take. Okay? And then it goes on to say they affect the way you eat, walk, talk, communication, work habits, and this is what we're talking about right here, success and failure. So you have to also understand, and this goes on to talk about it, and if you really want to get more information on this, like I said, this is on the Proctor Gallagher Institute website. If you go to that website, you'll find this article here if you want to read more about paradigms. But you have to understand something. This brings it up right here. Paradigms, they didn't originate with you. You weren't born with these paradigms. You didn't just come into this world and think the way that you did. They are an inheritance of other people's, and this is the key point, other people's habits, opinions, and belief systems. So let's kind of bounce back over to this page here. So let's take a look here at what happens. So we have our experiences. This is the things that we see. This is the things we hear, we taste, we touch. This is what we have experienced in life, and what happens is those experiences become reinforced into our belief systems. And our belief systems, those are what drive our actions, right? And our actions are what drive our reality. So we're born. So here's what this looks like. We're born. We have no control of what's coming at us. We have no control over the external influences. And we're born, and here we are, and we're in infancy. And in infancy, we have experiences in infancy. We don't have any control of these experiences. These are things happening to us that we do not have the ability to do anything about. We hear things, we see things, and we experience things. And all of this becomes reinforced over time into the belief systems that we grow up to have. So let's say that as we're growing up, and eventually we get to adolescence, and I'm going to butcher this word, right? We get to adolescence, having heard, seen, and experienced all this stuff here, and our belief systems have already started developing. And in adolescence, we have a little more control over our lives. But not really. Because by the time we get to this point, we already have a belief system driving our actions based on everything that we have already experienced in infancy. Now, as we age and get older and we go into we finally progress through the teenage years, and I'm going to skip that, into adulthood, these belief systems haven't changed. They're still there. They are still with us. And we are still going through the same actions, and those actions are creating same reality. Now, why is this important? What does this have to do with the business mindset? Well, let's think about this for a minute. We've already established that we develop belief patterns very young. Now, unless you're born into a family that has a very strong belief of building businesses, of building wealth, that's the minority of families and of people in general. About 1% believe that way, think that way. The remaining 99% of people, including myself and probably those listening, believe in concepts like working hard. Now, there's nothing wrong with working hard. Every wealthy person believes in working hard, but they believe in working smart. In other words, putting their money to work. Whereas we have been trained to work for money. Right? We've also been taught things like money is hard to get. We have to, it's hard to acquire it. We have to exchange our time. It's a clock. For money. That's what we've been taught. This is what 99% of people have been taught. This here, that we have to work hard. And by working hard, I mean we have to work for money. We have to do work for money rather than putting our money to work for us. And that money is hard to earn. And then, of course, exchanging work for money. What does this mean? A job. Okay? We're working for somebody else for a predetermined value. We have the employee mindset. These people have the business mindset, meaning they put their money to work for them, that they buy assets that allow them to make money. We have the employee mindset over here. In other words, we work for a paycheck. And we spend our money on luxuries. And I don't mean luxuries as in luxury items like what these people get to get. I'm talking about, dining out. I'm talking about financing a car that we can't afford. I'm talking about living life either within our means and not having anything else to show for it, or living extravagantly. So, this is how paradigms work. Again, recap. We're born. We have no power over what we experience. And we start to develop our belief patterns early on, and these belief patterns carry on to adulthood, where in adulthood, we join the 99% of people, unless you're fortunate to be born into that 1% of the population, where this is our concept of success, how we make money. Now, I touched on something there. Let's take a look at success, because part of the business mindset is understanding what success means. Now, obviously, you probably already know what success means. So this definition is pretty run-of-the-mill right here. The accomplishment of an aim or purpose. Now, Earl Nightingale put it a different way. He said it is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Okay? So that is how Earl Nightingale put it. And if you haven't heard of Earl Nightingale, he wrote he did an audio broadcast called The Strangest Secret. And if you haven't already listened to this, this is probably one of the coolest audios I have ever listened to. Again, Earl Nightingale. Look him up on YouTube. You can actually find this audio on YouTube. He's kind of old school, back from like the 70s or the 50s or something. So, and he made an audio called The Strangest Secret. Now, The Strangest Secret is comprised really of two main points. The first is the definition of success, and that was his definition of success. The second thing that he discussed is that we become what we think about. Okay? Now, let's kind of tie this in to our definition of paradigms, according to Bob Proctor. Now, again, Bob Proctor, paradigms, guide the multitude of habits that guide every action, move that you make, and they define our successes and failures. We've already gone over how we develop these paradigms. Remember, they are accumulated inheritance of other people's habits, opinions, and belief systems. We inherited these when we were very young. And here, negative and false, this is an interesting point here, are why 90-some%, I would argue 99% of the population keeps getting the same results. This is why the majority of people stay in the employee mindset, the barely getting by mindset. Okay? So let's bounce back. Success. We become what we think about, right? Now, some of people think, oh, this is some voodoo, witchcraft, law of attraction stuff. Well, not really, if you think about it. I mean, the definition of paradigms didn't sound that off the wall, now did it? We accumulate belief patterns which define our actions, and our actions define our reality. There's a lot of scientific basis to that. So Earl Nightingale's definition of becoming what we think about isn't really off the wall at all. In fact, it ties in nicely with that. So let's tie this into the main point I'm trying to make here, and that is the success mindset. Now, I said the business mindset, but what I really want to talk about is both the business success mindset. Now, let's kind of compare this here. Let's talk about the success mindset, and when I say success, think about it in terms of a business owner. And let's talk about the employee mindset, right? Now, let's think about what the characteristics of an employee are. An employee is somebody who, generally speaking, has no ownership interest in the organization that they are working for. In other words, they filled out an application, submitted a resume, got an interview, and eventually got a job. And now they work for this company, and they work in exchange for money. Again, they exchange their time for money. Now, The business mindset, we come over here. They have all ownership interest. Now, if you're a partnership, obviously you share ownership, but the success of the enterprise, you share all ownership of that success, meaning that even if you have ownership in a partnership where you own 50% and someone else owns 50%, well, if the enterprise fails completely, you have ownership of all of that failure, and just like you have ownership of all of its success. Now, you may have to split the result of that success 50%, but you have ownership of that enterprise. An employee, because they have no interest, has no. It's late. Sorry, I'm recording this late. Because they have no ownership interest, they will basically do enough to get by. Meaning, if I do enough to not get fired, then I've done my job, I've earned my check, and I can go cash it. The success mindset, the business owner, they do more than they have to. So a lot of business owners, they already know what they want to do. They have lists, they have tasks. They're like, okay, I need to do this, and this today in order, in order for the ship to stay afloat. But a successful business owner will say, okay, you know what though? I should also do this, and this, because we don't want to just stay afloat. We want to grow. We want to scale. We want to get bigger. So they do more than they have to. The employee does enough to get by. They're just looking to get their check at the end of the day. Now, the business owner invests in themselves extensively. What do I mean by this? They know that the success of their business is largely dependent on the kinds of skills that they have. Are they able to write copy? Are they able to design funnels? Are they able to drive traffic? And these are all things you can outsource, and that itself is a skill set. Outsource, knowing where to find reliable talent who can do all of this stuff. That is another skill source. When you're first starting out and you're a solopreneur, you're going to be learning a lot of this yourself. You won't have a lot of capital to work with. These are all skills that you have to learn yourself, and you have to be willing to invest in yourself. And what do we mean by invest? There's two components: money and time. Learning a skill is going to cost you most likely. Yeah, there's a lot of free information on the internet, but a lot of the higher level information is behind closed doors, and the key to those doors is money. And of course, like any skill, it's going to take time to learn. Excuse me. So, they're willing to invest. Now, with an employee, some might be willing to invest, but most of the time, they're not willing to invest very much. Now, here's why. They don't have ownership. If the business succeeds or fails, it doesn't matter to them. Here's what they'll do. The employee will go and get another job. Business goes under, the business fails, they get laid off. Well, first off, they're going to collect unemployment for a certain number of months. And in the meantime, they're going to be applying, and then eventually they're going to find another job. So they're not really willing to invest because they see their position as very changeable. Not only can they get terminated or laid off, but something better might come along. and they can leave at any point. No questions asked. So they're not really willing to invest very much. Now, some people will like go to school and develop skills to make themselves more marketable. But as far as the business that they're working at is concerned, they're not looking to better themselves for the benefit of the business. They're looking to better themselves for the benefit of themselves. They're looking to make themselves more marketable. And, they're not making themselves more marketable for a company they already work for. What they're making themselves more marketable for is a company that will pay them more, will give them more benefits, maybe more time off. Their motivation to invest in themselves is purely self-driven, based on what they can get. So, open up another page here. I really like this Microsoft Edge because I can kind of open up a browser and draw on it. So we've kind of gone over the difference between the employee and the business person. And we've talked about how what we think about drives who we become. Paradigms are those habits that have been developed, that we inherited from a very young age. So let's talk about what we need to do in order to shift from the employee to the business owner. Okay? Now again, from a very young age, we have been trained to think a certain way. We have been trained to go to school, to go get a job, to work 30, 35 years, finally retire with a 401k or a pension. Have you seen the number of people on retirement 401ks or pensions, even with their Social Security? A lot of them are just barely getting by. Earl Nightingale gives an interesting statistic in his audio, The Strangest Secret. Again, go listen to it. But he uses a breakdown of 100 people, right? And they start out at the age of 25, and he looks at them at the age of 65, right? And at the age of 25, 100% of those people want to be successful. They all want to achieve success. But by the time they're 65, here is how many have actually achieved some measure of success. 5%. 2 out of those 100% are considered wealthy. 3% are what are considered financially secure. And the rest are either working or, morbidly, dead. So out of 100 people, out of a population of 100 people, only 5% are in a place financially that would be considered successful. Even though at 25 they wanted to be successful, they wanted to have the money, they wanted to buy the house, they wanted to have the car, they wanted to travel, they wanted to do all this stuff. But only 5% have gotten to do all that, really, to the level that they wanted to when they were 25. So, what do we have to do in order to switch from being an employee to a business owner? Well, if you're watching this, you've already made the decision that you want to shoot for this. And I applaud you for that, because that is exactly where I think you personally should be. Working for yourself, driving your own destiny, not letting someone else assign your value for you. Basically say, your time is worth this amount of money to me. So, what do you have to do? First off, I'm going to tell you this right now. This is what I've done. This is going to sound like common sense, but do it. Read books. If you're looking for, what books to read, Millionaire Success Habits. Millionaire Success Habits by Dean Graziosi. Great book. Great book. It will give you practical pointers that you can use to start switching your mindset from the employee mindset to the business owner mindset, from a failure mindset to the success mindset, millionaire success habits. Brendan Buchard's The Motivation Manifesto. Great book. Again, Brendan Buchard. I'm probably butchering his first name. At least I got his right for last name. Okay. Listen to the audio book. So, not just read, but listen to audio books. And again, The Strangest Secret, it's free. And any of the audios by Earl Nightingale. Listen to these. He talks extensively about, like I said, this right here. This is discussed in The Strangest Secret. He talks about this extensively. He talks about the mindset you want to have and how to develop it. This is a great one to listen to. Other people to read or listen to. Again, Bob Proctor, he talks about the paradigms. Other people to listen to. Onyx Segal. He wrote a book called Escape. And this one talks about going from employee to entrepreneur. So these are just a few here, but seriously, just Google books on success mindset. I guarantee you it'll pull up a laundry list of books you can read to help you start to develop this mindset here. And they will talk about the success mindset, but really, in order to be a business owner, you have to have the success mindset. You have to think like a successful person. These are just a few books you can read. This little list right here, Millionaire Success Habits, Motivation Manifesto, The Strangest Secret, anything by Bob Proctor, Onyx Segal, Escape. This little handful of books will get you started in the right direction. And here's what's going to happen. As you read, as you learn, here's what's going to start to happen. Your sphere of understanding is going to start out really small. And then you're going to read another book or listen to another audio. It's going to get a little bit bigger, and 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 a little bit bigger. And it's just going to keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You started here, and then one point, maybe a couple months down the month, you're going to realize you started here. You didn't know any of this. You didn't understand any of this success mindset stuff. And now you're way out here. You've got all these layers of knowledge now, all these layers of understanding. Your belief systems that you currently have begin to change. And they'll change automatically. Yeah, you'll have to do some exercises. You might do things like affirmations in the morning. You might, create a vision board. You might do certain things to, external things to help you with changing your mentality. But just by reading and listening, your mindset will begin to shift. What I do every morning. This is what my morning looks like. Okay? This is what I do. First thing I do before I even touch my business is I'll listen to The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. That's 45 minutes long. So I start my day. And then I'll do a practice where I'll write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And then I'll do my business affirmation, where I will basically state what my ideal year, and this is an exercise you'll actually learn. Bob Proctor talks about it, but it's in Millionaire Success Habits. But they'll use the example of instead of saying, I am successful, I'm successful, I'm successful, they'll say, you know what, write down what your ideal year looks like. This year, I went, and they say write it down in past tense, as if it already happened. I went to Disneyland with my family. You know, things like that. Talk about your business success. My business made over, you know, whatever amount you want to make. Let's just say it, $1 million. Why not? You know, things like that. You write your affirmation. You say this over and over. And I just do it once. This one I just do once in the morning. In the Earl Nightingale audio, they're gonna talk about writing your goal, your worthy intention on a note card, and reading that multiple times per day. And on your note card, you know, you're basically gonna say, you know, what your goal is, and you're gonna say it in a statement that's, you know, that an affirmative statement. I will earn X amount of dollars by, and then a definitive date. Not just, I'll just earn this money. What date are you going to earn this money by? Is it going to be 5 years from now? Is it going to be 10 years from now? Whatever the case may be, how you're going to earn this money. I will earn it by, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to sell, you know, high quality products. You're going to, you know, you're going to coach people. You're going to help people. You're going to provide some service. Now, it's important to remember, and I kind of want to touch on this real quick before we wrap this up, but the amount of money you earn will always be in direct proportion to the amount of value you provide, how much you're worth to someone else, how much the information you have is worth to someone else. So, if you want to make $1 million in a year, you have to provide $1 million in value. That doesn't mean you have to sell $1 million. You know, I mean, that could be just selling $1 million in product. But I mean, look at it this way. What if you promoted a product, and this product was a high quality product, and it allowed 1,000 people to earn $1,000. Well, what does that equal? You got it. $1 million. You don't have to sell $1 million in value in one go. Like I said, you just help 1,000 people make $1,000, and you provided $1 million in value. It's pretty straightforward. So, kind of to wrap up, I know we've kind of gone through a lot tonight. This is a lot longer than I meant to make it, but the main thing I really want to express to you is the importance of the business mindset. That you need to get the business mindset first. You have these paradigms. They've been put into your brain from day one. You know, you've been working off of these same belief systems since you were an infant. And you're probably still operating on them. So if you want to get to that level of success, if you want to be an effective business owner, you're going to have to work on replacing those paradigms with belief systems that are going to serve you. So that's all for tonight. I'm glad you tuned in. I'm glad you listened. I'm grateful you stuck with me. I really, really, really want you to be successful. So like I said, go out there, pick up one of those books, the Dean Graziosi book, the Onyx and Gall book. I mean, if anything, pull up YouTube, listen to the Earl Nightingale audio, The Strangest Secret, 45 minutes. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It's completely free. If you do nothing but that, that's going to get you started in the right pattern. So I wish you all the success, and I look forward to us tuning in together soon in the next video of this series. Again, this is Brian from Praeterio, signing out. Thank you.